Welcome to this video in the session of Module 1. We talked about the strategy in Module 1, rent to rent. What is it? And I gave you all different types of case studies. Now, it's so important that you understand subletting. It's all well and good that we want to control everything. It's all well and good that we want to make money as much as possible by controlling other people's properties, assets, like the bank. But these institutions have over time been able to put legal frameworks in order for them to do this legally and legitimately. So when it comes to rent, the first thing you want to be able to explain, opening your eyes or closing your eyes or even imagining or having any simple thought, is to correctly understand the rule that governs subletting. Subletting is when a tenant lets a home or part of a property to someone who is known as a tenant. That is subletting. So subletting means you let a property, a part of a property, to someone else who is known as a tenant. Okay, now whether that's done legally or illegally, that is where the catch is. That's where the issues are. Subletting is legal, all right? It's not illegal. When it becomes illegal is when you do it without the landlord or the property owner or someone that has the full ultimate superior ownership is not aware. So imagine this for 1 minute, that I gave you my money, all right? I'm like, Kevin, this is £1,500 in your bank account. Can you hold that money for me? And then Kevin spends my 1,500 without letting me know he's spending my money, and he spent it on something else. By the time I come and say, Kevin, can I have my money? And Kevin be like, oh, I spent your money. But you did not have my permission to spend my money. I gave it to you. Now I can take Kevin to court. Myself and Kevin can get into a massive argument. Same thing with a landlord and a tenant. The landlord is giving you a home for you to live in. The landlord is giving you a home for you to maintain and to look after his property while you have a shelter over your roof. Why would you then go and put so many other people in that property without the landlord's knowledge? So when that does happen, it becomes a breach of contract. So this is one of the reasons why a lot of people don't understand subletting. So subletting is just in that simple kind of case study. So subletting means that the landlord has to be fully aware, then he will allow it. Or for example, in the example of Kevin spending my money, if I give Kevin my £1,500 to use, he needs to tell me, Daniel, I would use your money in the meantime while you don't need it. But in the situation where Kevin hasn't told me he's going to use my 1,500, or for example, all right, I put so many people to live in property with me without the landlord being aware when he did not rent that property, then it becomes a legal issue. Now, you have to be very careful in not falling into this bubble, because from time to time, most people that do rent to rents, they end up telling the landlord they are the one that's going to live there. And then they sublet that property to someone else. By the way, when you do that, you can end up being fined up to £5,000, and you could even be prosecuted and possibly sent to prison. So it's important that you go and research all things subletting in order for you to begin a rent-to-rent strategy, because you have to understand you would need the permission of the landlord to sublet their property legally, and it has to be on the contract on black and white that they've given you the permission to sublet that property, use their property for whatsoever reason that you choose to use that property for. Subletting also means rather than the tenants paying the rent to the landlord directly, they're paying the rent to you, the subtenant. So you have the superior landlord who is the owner of the property. You have the sub landlord who is the rent to renter. So in a situation whereby you now rent the property to someone else, you now have a chain. The superior landlord gets the rent between the subletter, and then the tenant gets the rent from the main tenant, which is the person you're subletting to. So in a situation whereby the landlord doesn't know what's going on, you're committing an offense. But in a situation whereby the landlord knows that you, the tenant, who is the sub-landlord, has another tenant in the property that is paying you, the sub-landlord, the rent, and he, the superior landlord, getting the income in the property, means that you are doing all things correctly. So make sure that you check into this correctly in order for you to begin your property journey. Now, When it comes to rent, HMO, self-accommodation, care home to supported living, when it comes to single family let, it's so important that you have to make sure on your contract, whichever contract, in any contract that you're going to be using, it has to give you the permission to legally sublet that property, i.e. on a room by room basis, HMO. Number two, you have to have the permission to sublet that property on platforms like booking.com, or you have to have permission to sublet that property to a care provider, supported living, or you have to have a permission to sublet that property to a single family whilst you remain the sub landlord. I'll see you on the next video where we're now going to go into all things HMO specifically. Now, by the way, if you do need to understand the service accommodation model, the rent-to-rent service accommodation model, we do have a training section that's completely dedicated to the rent-to-rent service accommodation model. So do make sure you go to that section to watch all things rent-to-rent service accommodation. However, if you do need to know more about how to establish yourself as a rent-to-renter to a single family dwelling, or how to get into the journey as the rent-to-rent care to supported living model, at the end of this training you will have an opportunity to book a call with myself or the team, and where we will speak to you to see how we can help you a bit further. Maybe coming to spend 3 days with us live in person, or maybe actually becoming a member of our Wealth Circle community. I'll see you on the next video where we're now going to go in depth into the rent-to-rent HMO model. Take care and see you soon.